cool. Moving on to privacy. Privacy. One of the biggest areas in which almost every commercial enterprise is forced to deal with is privacy. Right now, it is the hottest topic. Why? Because Americans culturally have this really perverse notion of what our privacy expectations should be. I should have the right for you not to see what I'm doing, even when I'm putting everything that I'm doing on the internet. Here is my sandwich. This is what I had 5 minutes ago. Now I'm going to go play pinball. After that, I'm going to go feed the dog. But you can't read this. Only my friends can read this. We are weird, weird creatures. We're going to be forced to comply. Is there a uniform federal law regarding privacy? Yes. How old is it? How much?
I just said old.
Old! It's way old. It's almost as old as me. Privacy Act of 1974. What's that?
It's the Constitution.
Nope. Not in there.
Yes! Yes! As a matter of fact, the Constitution has it. Fourth Amendment. What does Fourth Amendment say? You can buy beer on Tuesday. No. Fourth Amendment is unreasonable search and seizure, right? We have privacy. Privacy from whom? The government. A little different than privacy from each other, a little different than privacy from the newspapers, a little different than different forms of privacy, but privacy from the government. That Fourth Amendment carries over into our privacy in our home. I remember when I was at the Air Force Academy as a senior, we got to go and see an actual seated hearing for the Court of Military Appeals, which is the military's, under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, it's their form of the Supreme Court. It's the highest court in the military. And it was really cool. I was bored. I'm like, why are you making me do this on a Thursday night? It was awesome. The justices were funny. They were breaking out the jokes. They were hammering the prosecution. It was really wild. The case was a couple of Air Force security police officers had snuck off base and gone to the private property of one of the military members who lived off base. And from outside their property, I think they were like hiding behind a tree or something like that, using binoculars, they were looking through the window of that person's house in a gap that the curtains had created to see what they were doing. They had suspected there was something going on. The military member ended up getting busted for activity that was not related to anything they had probable cause for, but they were able to observe through the window. And the question becomes, what brought them to the property? Did they have a legal right to go and look at the property even though they weren't looking for that particular kind of activity? It was fascinating. It was really cool. The government is limited from invading that privacy. When they closed the curtain but didn't do it all the way, did they have an expectation of privacy? Yeah, they were in their own home. They were off base. They had closed the curtain most of the way. They didn't expect that a reasonable person would be staring at them with binoculars from across the street. That was pretty fascinating stuff. So yes, the Constitution, Privacy Act, all these things are really old, which means they're not following technology. They haven't caught up with us yet. So, who's taking care of that problem? Who's stepping in with new privacy laws?
The EFF's trying.
Yeah.
EFF, I have to expose my biases here. I'm really impressed with the work they do.
Me too.
I really like them. I think some of the stuff that they do is some of it's a little flamboyant, but I'm impressed that they seem to be standing up on the right side of most of these decisions. Who else? Who else is making laws?
Congress?
They're getting around to it, yeah. They're trying to. And I remember the recent blackouts on the internet, the protest days. What were those about?
Soap on a pipa?
Yeah. And what were those? And who did what in response to those?
I don't remember.
It was efforts by the industries affected. Again, these were media industries that had copyright concerns. They lobbied Congress to get these laws written saying that if even a third party hosts, and it was mostly video they were going at, if they host creative works because they're not supervising what those works are, that entire site can be shut down. Their business can be shut down because of inadvertent release of copyrighted material. That was terrifying, because that meant that if some kid goes on my bulletin board or my blog space and posts something that's copyrighted, I can be taken down and held responsible, even though I in no way voluntarily took part in malicious activity. Who protested? Gregory?
A lot of people.
Yeah, like who?
Gizmodo.
Gizmo. Okay, I didn't even know that. That's great. They went dark that day?
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia went dark that day. I think Google didn't go dark, but they put a black banner across their logo that day in protest. A lot of folks said, we're gonna show you what a world without an internet looks like for a day. And that panicked Congress. They ended up not putting those laws forward. Okay, so who is putting those laws forward? Who was asking the telcos for access to all of their data after September 11th? NSA. Yeah. NSA said, can we put a black box in your shop and watch everything? And what did the telcos say?
Sure, don't tell anybody.
Come on in. Come on in. There was one. I'm trying to remember which one. I think it was Verizon. Said, you come with a warrant. You come back with a warrant. Otherwise, get away from me. Yeah. Because they were afraid they would be breaking the law. NSA is not chartered to do that domestically, right? Good. So who's making these laws? Back to the privacy thing. Who's making these laws? Gabriel, what privacy laws do you have to follow where you are?
The state?
The state. California has some really super restrictive privacy laws, doesn't it? And it's going to go state by state. When Sony published a Trojan horse with one of their CDs that installed a rootkit and communicated back to Sony headquarters exactly what all those users were doing so that they could monitor your digital rights management usage, who prosecuted them?
State. The people.
California. California did. It wasn't a tort. California Attorney General said, you will cease and desist. You are in violation of our state laws. That was pretty hardcore. Pretty hardcore. Good. We spent a lot of time on that slide. I apologize. That's a fun topic, though, isn't it? The OECD has some principles for dealing ethically with privacy data. This may look a lot like a lot of legislation that we use. It's got a lot of the same concepts built into it, and some of them are common sense, and they seem very, very reasonable. Privacy data should be collected in a lawful way with consent of those it's being gathered from. That's pretty straightforward. Are Americans really quick to divulge their personal data?
Depends on how you ask.
What's the easiest way to ask an American for privacy data?
Give them chocolate.
What's that?
Go to Facebook.
Yeah.
Offer them something. I've got, I don't know how many of these frequent shopper cards, right? It tells them my home address. It tells them where I'm shopping, when I'm shopping, what I'm buying. It gives me a very minimal substandard discount on cat food, right? I mean, it's something really, really base. If I want to use Skyrim online, when it goes online, the MMORPGs, what do they all ask for? Consent to be monitored. They ask for all sorts of information. I will let you play my game if you give me your privacy data. Okay, yes. Yeah, we give it up real quick. We get mad if someone takes it, but if you ask us, we're readily willing to share. Should be relevant to the purpose. It should be accurate. Anyone ever pull their own credit report? Anyone ever find faults in their credit report? What'd you find, Andy?
Oh, I'd had a credit card stolen before.
Oh, okay. And you were able to identify that from the credit report?
Yeah.
Cool.
I got a good one. So I'm a junior. I found on my credit report I had taken out credit cards before I was born.
My grandfather's credit card showed up on mine. Yeah. It's wild. Did they correct it?
Yes.
How did you correct it? How did you go about
The cards.
Yeah.
My grandfather had lousy credit. That old man.
I mean, they were companies. It was like Sears. Somebody that's still in existence and what have you. Went back, had to get things corrected and what have you. So
Was it difficult for you to do that?
it took a while. I don't know that it was hard necessarily, but it took a while.
I was impressed. I was able to send one letter to the credit card company. They went through the machinations. They did it themselves.
Yeah.
It was pretty impressive. Good. Kept up to date, obviously. The purposes it's going to be used for should be specified at time of collection. Is this always an effective regulation, even when it's written into legislation? Anyone think of a way around this? If you make the request general enough, the purpose is anything, right? Who has talked to an operator or a customer service line in the past 10 years? What do they open the conversation with? What's like the first thing they say?
Conversation account number.
This conversation is going to be recorded for
Training purposes.
quality control and training purposes.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
They don't say that. That's automated.
One person said that 30 years ago, and it's being used everywhere now.
Point taken. Very good. Yes. Why do they do that? So they can use your information for anything. What's quality purposes? Anything they want it to be, right? Yeah. And they avoid wiretap problems with that as well. Should not be disclosed other than the stated purpose, meaning that the harvester shouldn't give it to whom? Why are they mostly taking the information?
To sell it.
To sell it. They're going to sell it somewhere else. It's got inherent value. Your demographic information, your sales information, your purchasing behavior is valuable. And it should be reasonably protected by the person taking it. Problem with that, who's a reasonable person?
Judge.
The judge. Yeah. More core principles. The individual whose information you're harvesting should be able to get confirmation from the harvester whether or not they have information associated with that person. Who's ever submitted a FOIA on themselves? What's a FOIA? The Freedom of Information Act, which says what?
Request any document from the government.
Absolutely. Government has to disclose anything you ask for as long as it's not classified or it takes too long to reproduce, in which case they can ask you for a nominal fee to reproduce it. It's really neat to see what the government knows about you. I recommend it highly. It's fun. It costs you nothing other than the stamp on the envelope or the reproduction cost if your file's really big. Who? Jay? Jay? Is there a sordid history in the Huber family? Is there?
Could be.
Huh? You do go to Nine Inch Nails concerts, you know? I think that puts you on a watch list right away. You should be able to disclose that information to the person you've collected it from, and the person should be able to challenge if the organization says no, if the organization says so. Is the OECD binding? No. The reason ISC Squared included it in the book is these were international guidelines that were established by a lot of signatory countries that found them sensible, found them ethical. U.S. is a member of the OECD. All right. We talked a lot about privacy. Talk about employee monitoring in relation to privacy. Do businesses have the right to watch you? Oh, heck yeah. If they do, what's the downside for them? They might alienate their own employees. Employees in many environments don't like the idea of someone staring over their shoulder, even though they know it can happen. They just don't like being reminded of it. They don't like thinking about it. Nobody likes the idea of Big Brother watching them, right? Plus, we like to feel like we're valued as well. We like to feel like we're trusted. Once the organization starts to diminish that relationship, we're going to have morale problems as well. These principles all affect the legality in terms of that. Remember we were talking about how to establish that reasonableness? These things will all do it. Let's go through those real quick. Necessity means what in terms of monitoring? Not a trick question here.
Is it needed?
Is it needed? Did you have to go and do it? Just blanket recording everybody's everything. is legal, but it's harder to justify in terms of necessity because there's an added expense there. There's an exception to that, and we'll get to that in just a second. Finality means what? I'm going to monitor you for a given period of time to see if that behavior exists. Transparency. Same thing as we talked about earlier with security controls. Who should the monitoring be transparent to? The user. The person being monitored should not have to acknowledge the fact that they're being monitored other than that first permission of, yeah, I consent to it. Legitimacy. Is that necessary reason actually something that's legal? Is there something that we're trying to establish? Are they stealing office supplies? Are they stealing business resources? Are they harassing someone? It can't just be in terms of we think this person's using email too much. That's a managerial decision. It's not a legal thing. Proportionality. What do we mean there? Can somebody give an example of disproportionate monitoring?
You watch me for 23 hours, but everybody else for only 1 hour a day.
Good. And that's another aspect of it. You have to treat that person the same as you treat other people. Either it's random and you're going to do it to everybody eventually, or you have a reason to go after me. Proportionality also means if there's, say, an HR claim against me saying I've been harassing Brent, and Brent made the complaint 2 weeks ago, said it started 2 weeks ago, it's been going on for 2 weeks. The company or the organization shouldn't go back 2 years and go through all of my emails. That's disproportionate. That's ludicrous. Now, if it happens for 2 weeks and they find evidence of it, that might give them a legitimacy and a necessity to go back further and see if it was a long-term thing, but not on the first strike, right? Accuracy. Again, if you're going to review me, if you're going to monitor me, make sure you're getting an accurate reading of my behavior. And security. The monitoring should not cause me additional risk because I'm the subject of the monitoring. Make sense? Liability. Simple definition. Legal responsibility. We talked about different kinds of liability. We talked about different kinds of legal systems. Liability can come in both ways. You can be both civilly liable and criminally liable. Anybody remember Joe Dante, the director of the film Twilight Zone, and criminal liability charges filed against him for making that movie? Wasn't that good a movie, so it kind of wasn't worth it. But anybody remember what happened on that set? Vic Morrow, the actor, and 2 child actors were killed in a helicopter accident while filming a sequence that was supposed to be taking place in Vietnam. And the question became, was Dante running his set in a reasonable, due diligent manner? Most accounts say no. He got off very easily for what he was doing. But he was working the people too long. He was taking risks with the pyrotechnics and the aircraft that he should not have been. That's a criminal proceeding. Was he criminally negligent? Can you be also sued in civil court for liability? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you did something to me, it might not necessarily been illegal, but it was inappropriate, yeah, I can definitely sue you. Good. Negligence, again, acting without due care. Failure to act in a prudent manner if you're given the responsibility to do so. Can you be prosecuted for not helping someone?
Successfully, only on Seinfeld.
Seinfeld, yeah.
What was the episode?
It's the last episode, or last 2 episodes.
Okay, all right, yeah. Oh, that finale. That was horrible. Yeah, that was not good. Good show, bad ending. They had jumped the shark a while back. In this country, if you see a car accident, are you required to pull over and stop and lend aid? No. You are not forced to put yourself at risk. You're not even forced to put yourself in discomfort for helping somebody else out. There are exceptions, Leslie, such as
I don't know.
medical profession.
Oh, okay.
If you are a trained professional, again, if you are responsible in that domain for acting in that manner, yeah, you have to. On my plane here, this is the first time this has ever happened. On the plane out of Sacramento, it was like a movie set. 5 minutes after we'd taken off, is there a medical professional or doctor on board? And everybody goes quiet. I mean, it's like, whoa. There was an old guy in like the third or fourth row, and evidently he was having some trouble, and they pulled the stethoscope out of the overhead. I didn't know they had a stethoscope in the overhead. They pulled the oxygen bottle out of the where the first, it's Southwest, so there's no first class, but out of where the first class closet would be, they pulled an oxygen. I didn't know they had an oxygen. Why don't they just drop the thing from up there? That's supposed to have oxygen in it, right?
That's an all or nothing.
Oh, okay, all right. And they're helping this guy out. Now, I asked for a Tylenol. They won't give me anything, but, they're giving this guy oxygen. Turns out we were fine. We didn't have to land, on the way to the connecting flight, but that was pretty impressive. Two people showed up at the front of that plane. These people are going on vacation, and yet they're medical professionals. They go up there and they lend assistance. It was pretty impressive. It was pretty cool. Again, not required to unless you're given that responsibility. You, in the position of security officer, are responsible for the security expectations for the security operations in your organization. You do have to act, otherwise you are liable. If you fail to act, you can face charges. And you can face prosecution, and you can lose suits as well. Due care and due diligence, we talked about this again. Would somebody with the same training in the same context act in the same manner? In the same manner. Let me say that again one more time so that it goes over in the recording. Would somebody with the same responsibilities, same skill set, in the same context, act in the same manner? Questions about liability?